Hey, what's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I want to introduce my friend Jamel CampbellGooch. Jamel CampbellGooch is the statewide organizing director for the Southern Movement Committee and organizer with the Black Nashville Assembly. He's a Nashville native from the 37208 zip code, once identified as the highest incarcerated zip code in the country. He is a TSU alumnus, where he researched his family lineage, tracing back to ancestors enslaved on prominent plantations. He has worked extensively in the social justice sector, particularly in education and community centers using peace circles and restorative justice techniques. His advocacy focuses on participatory governance, restorative justice, dignified housing, quality education, fair employment, community-led public safety, and a guaranteed basic income. I thought that this was the brother. If somebody was going to sit down and talk to me about, may I be brave enough to speak my truth, it would be this king. Please give it up for my friend Jamel CampbellGooch.
Yo, this is too much. Slow down. Peace, God, peace.
From Music City, Nashville to the world. This is not a podcast. This is not a conversation about art. This is an attempt to wake you up. And now that I've got your attention, don't listen to the words. Listen to the silence between the words. You are now entering
the Museum of Presence.
All right, everybody. Hey, all right, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Jamel, so my first question to you, we had a conversation, and this is actually what popped up why I need to talk to you, because you were talking after an event, and you said to me something about the power of art and revolution.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you were talking about?
Yeah, so that's this famous. So when I was jamming with Shabazz, we was talking about like what specifically is the role of the artist when it comes to social justice work. A lot of times, everyday people see social justice work as this thing that is not easily to participate in, not easily approachable. So I went to this. It's this thing that Todi K. Bombara says, where she says the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. And when we talk about revolution, we talk about the complete transformation of society, right? So that is the thing. Artists have this ability to take very complex ideas like liberation, like participatory governance, like self-determination, and condense it down to translate into a medium where the idea is planted. And we saw that throughout the halls today. Whether it was with the SNCC students that were doing nonviolent protests, literally to all kind of folks on the wall taking their power back, right? That is planting the idea that people have the power to change things, and that is the role of the artist.
Man, bless you. Thank you. I love that. Thank you very much. That's great. Right before I came in, there was a young brother, this young man who came to me, and he said, I want to do something special with my art. I want to do something that matters, and so I think that we need to hear this. Hear this.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you said that, because in the sounds that I was hearing as I was taking in the art piece is Amiri Baraka, right? And those poets from the Black Arts Movement, and them doing it behind the horn, and literally talking about in Amiri Baraka, one thing that he consistently says is the highest form of political struggle you can do is translating the experience of the people through your art. And the way we do that, and me and Shabazz talk about this often, is people finding organizations that help translate what's going on in the world. Right? And able to translate what's going on in the world in such a way that we are able to plant these ideas of self-autonomy, of self-determination, of liberation, of revolution, of complete transformation in people's minds, so they know that it's a goal that they can achieve. Because every day we are inundated with messages that tell us that we are not worthy. And so it's really the role of the artist to inspire hope, change, and the mobilization of people.
One of the things when I first met you, you talked about how your family has been here since like
1794.
So I would love for you have a long history here. And I think that part of the thing that like art does is able to show us ourselves.
No, for real.
So my question is, you having such a long history in this city,
Yes.
and this being a city that sort of has such a long history of Black people building this Black artists.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about your experience with cultural erasure, like visibility of this culture that has been here, but where is it?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, and I appreciate you saying that, because one thing we talked about before, and I think we've talked about this, is like how Nashville is known as the music city. But when you look it up and you look at the iconography that surrounds Nashville, it's all about country music, right? It's not, you lose the story of the Jubilee Singers doing a tour across the country because their school is going bankrupt and performing in front of audience, and the Queen of England saying, you must be from a music city. And the city actually getting the name because of Black artists, right? And so there's oftentimes you lose that. But also, it's this dichotomy because those stories are around us, right? If you look at people like literally my mom, who's in the crowd today, right? She graduated from Pearl High, which was one of the first organized Black high schools in the country.
Wow.
I think it's the first Black high school to receive public funding.
Wow.
Right? But you will never hear about that, right? Even in the pieces that you displayed with the Civil Rights Movement, we talk a lot about, in Nashville, we talk a lot about the students. We talk a lot about the college students doing the sit-in. Well, one thing that's lost in translation is the Pearl High principal literally allowed the whole school to leave to participate in the movement, and told the students and the teachers that he would not suspend or punish anyone there, right? Our high schools were filled with people like Troy Merritt, right? Which allowed his students to literally, and led them in marches and participate in nonviolent direct action. So to be from here and be from a long lineage of that fight, I think it's just like important that we continuously present that in the messaging and in the art, which you have done. Excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
For sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, and since you brought it up, you're skipping ahead of my questions here, but you brought it up. There are two pieces that feature John Lewis.
Yes.
One where he's praying outside of a pool where they didn't want Black kids to be in there, so they filled the pool up with hydrochloric acid or something like that.
Yeah.
And while they were in it,
Yeah.
and they were outside protesting by praying outside. Another one where it features like a small picture of his mugshot.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that the work that you're doing really has a relationship with the work that John Lewis was doing. When I first got to sit down with you and have a conversation, you told me the story of the power and impact of John Lewis.
Right.
And I was wondering, can you share some of that story today?
Oh yeah, so first of all, the pool that you mentioned was also bricked. So not only did they try to get Black kids not to swim there, after everyone left, they ended up bricking the pool. And that pool is a Centennial, I believe. Centennial Art Center. It's the Centennial Art Center now, but you can still go out and literally see where the pool was sit. But they bricked it after. So that is just an example of how much structural racism is baked into literally the fabric of this country. Also, and whenever we talk about, like, whenever you got a good organizer in front of you, they talk about their lineage. So I was invited into organizing work by Erica Perry, who was a movement attorney when she invited me into this work. So I'm definitely not only a reflection of that invitation, but also a reflection of this long lineage of people who have took on the liberation struggle, like Kwame Ture, like Erica Perry, like Mary Hooks. There's so many names, right? Like a Troy Merritt, like a Ed Sanders. There's so many names, especially that are fruitful in this ground. And I also want to frame it up as like, that is the John Lewis that was at that point in time considered too radical, way too radical, right? For the ideas. The establishment rejected that version of John Lewis. I just want to remember that, right? That is the John Lewis that the Metro Nashville Police Department was consistently arresting on an everyday basis, right? That was the John Lewis where, as the first chairman of SNCC, when he was supposed to speak at the March on Washington, they had him submit his speech early because they was afraid of what he was going to say in front of this group of Black folks. That is that John Lewis that is encapsulated in those art pieces, which I think it's very important to remember that John Lewis, right? Because oftentimes the system, just like they do with King, they want to remember a post-Vietnam War King. They don't want to remember the King after Vietnam War who told everybody that the United States have cut us a bad check, right? They don't want to talk about the John Lewis that was willing to put his body on the line for the idea of liberation and what those students thought were free. And Nashville is fruitful for this. We know Nashville is like, the people of Nashville are like this sleeping giant, right? And another thing that's important is our young people are often told that they cannot win.
Right.
And so anytime in the Southern Movement Committee, when we organize with our youth assembly members, we explain that Nashville student city and story through the lens of the students. The NAACP told them not to go do it. The elders in the church said, do not go do that. They went and did it anyway. And not only did they go and do it, they won and gave the civil rights movement a boost of momentum where it would literally lead to a tremendous win countrywide. And so those are the things I think your art is translating and remembering that version of John Lewis that was faithfully in the streets every day doing direct actions against the institutions.
Thank you, man. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story.
Appreciate that.
You know what? I want to come back to your work because I'm making this, I see a connection between, and I don't want to, I want you to tell it about the work of the seventh. Mike started off by giving us before he gave us a taste of it, but I'd love for you to also talk about, I'm very impressed by this sort of correlation of using art as a tool to inspire. Can you tell us what the Southern Movement Committee is and some of the things that you think you see a connection there?
Yeah, so the Southern Movement Committee, we are a social justice organization. We do social justice work across the state of Tennessee. We have several different programs. One of those programs is the Black Nashville Assembly, where we bring everyday working class folks together, talk about what are our issues, talk about our solutions, and then organize around those solutions. Another program that we have is our Youth Assembly, where we take young people between the ages of 14 and 18 who are really interested in doing social justice work, just don't know anything about it. We teach them leadership development, what's the difference between community organizing, activism, and advocacy, right? And what's the holes there? And when is it best to use a certain tactic? We even talk about what's the difference between a strategy and a tactic. And we literally ask them, what are things that can improve? And so they came up with a list of demands that include a youth guaranteed basic income, real restorative justice in school that young people can hold on to, the ability to see themselves in education. We call that liberated education. And we literally train those young people and allow them to then go organize other young people. And that model has worked throughout time. Then the third wing is really how we engage with our artists. Recently, we had a statewide tour where we took musicians like Ro Marquez, Mike Floss, Chuck Indigo, a whole list of students, Art Bully in Memphis, Mafia 9 in Memphis, so many artists that were willing to dedicate their craft to really talking about and dedicate their craft and their momentum to social justice. And we did a tour across Nashville. So we did a show at the Blue Room, sold it out. We did another show in Paris, Tennessee at LL's. We did an all R&B show. I think we sold that one out as well. Then we went to Memphis and did a show with our Memphis cousins across in West Tennessee. So we're using the arts to just draw people into organizations.
Help me see what happens. So you guys throw a concert. Yeah. Everybody comes out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're rocking, okay? Yeah. Shug, Mike, they're all they're killing it. Yeah. And then what happens?
So there's a message in all of those people's music. Yes. Right. So all we do is we just invite them to organization. And when we talk about organizing, and I think it's important to define words. When we talk about organization, we talk about working with people to alter their relationship to power and increasing people's ability through membership-based organizations to hold power. When we talk about power, it's simply the ability to have an idea and make that thing happen, right? And so we talk about drawing people into the space, sprinkling a little light politic, also blessing it with Black joy and Black love, and then inviting them back to continuously do that work of community building.
So they come out, they do the concert, everybody's looking fly. You know what I'm saying? The ceremonies are happening, ladies and the fellas.
The libations are flowing.
The libations are flowing.
Yes, sir.
And then you come on the stage and you teach them something.
Right. And there's a little sprinkle of something. I might teach them something. Erica Perry might teach them something. Mike Floss might teach them something. They might even listen to Burn It Down by Chuck and learn a little something. You know what I'm saying? So they learn it throughout the time.
Okay.
Right.
But you know, I just think that this is the power of art, right? Like, I think that, like what you said at the top, you might not get into a long documentary about history if you're not there yet.
Right.
but you feel it in the music.
Yeah.
And so we're able to help each other see each other.
Yeah.
You know, you see it in the art that hopefully maybe touches you and says a story that, you know, I always tell the story about but from Kehinde Wiley. I always give him honor and respect because he made me an artist. I've never met him before, but I went to this museum, the Virginia Museum of Art, and there's this giant portrait. I think it's called like Willem van Hethum. I always pronounce it wrong. But what he does is he gets these people off the street and he has them like flip through an old book of Renaissance paintings and they pose in the posture of like one of these like European kings or something like that. And I remember seeing this in this museum. It's about 10 feet tall, or at least it felt like it. And the brothers wearing Sean John, which at the time was, you know what it is?
Yeah.
So, you know, he's wearing Sean John and the Timbs. And,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, I've never seen me like that. It wasn't me, but it was looked like everybody that I went to school with.
Yeah.
And everybody that I wanted to be. And I sat there and I cried for hours.
That's real.
At the moment, I didn't even really understand what was happening. But it was a picture of someone honoring my culture, someone honoring what I care about, what I look like. And I just remember that day just feeling like I want my art to make people feel this way as well. I want people to look at it and see themselves there. Before that moment, I didn't even realize that as I walked through the rest of the museum, like I couldn't find people that looked like me. And when I say look like me, like dressed like me and felt like this belonged in my walls, these stories. And so, I don't know, I think that this is why it's so powerful for the art, so powerful for what you're doing with the Southern Movement Committee.
And that's why we need artists, what you just explained. That feeling that people get seeing themselves, that the feeling that people get when they are used to being like an outcast, and then this medium of art is being translated in a way that moves them emotionally, right? And that is the organizing that we need for them to feel, right? Because sometimes it's difficult to explain these things, right? Like even where we're sitting right now, it's like this place right around the corner. They're building an 813-acre multi-agency law enforcement center. And if anyone knows anything, throughout the country, it's these mega complexes being built, cop cities all over the place, right? That's a difficult thing to explain sometimes. But an art medium can translate the energy needed to imagine a future where those things do not exist anymore, right? And that's why I think like your art and your proximity to organization helps us also develop how can we break this down in a way that everyday people can understand, where they can see themselves in the future and then work towards that future where these things that seem as normal as water are not there anymore, right? For instance, when we talk about police officers in school, that's a new thing. My mama didn't have police officers in school, right? But we have collectively forgotten that we have been able to have a safe school without police officers. We have collectively forgotten that idea. So these institutions did not exist at one point in time, but they seem very normalized now. So translating that message into the art medium where people can literally see themselves in the future, give us something to work with in the present to work towards.
May I be brave enough to speak my truth.
And that's real.
And that's real. One of the things that I've heard you speak about a lot is policing. And you begin to speak about it, but I don't think that everybody is making the connection. What's the problem with police? Like, what is that? Can you speak your truth about this?
And I will say, like, it's easier to speak your truth when you're in an organization too, because there's a thing called collective risk. It's easier for the group to take a risk if we all taking it together. And that's why we invite people in the organization, because it is in that organization where those ideas around how we solve things like food deserts, how we solve the corporatization of our communities through gentrification, how we solve those things. People have the solutions. There's just no place for us to come together and work those solutions. So those calculated risks we can take together. And John Lewis, although it's him, right? There was a whole lot of people arrested. There's a long list of mugshots in that moment, right? And so that John Lewis is also taking risks with a group of people, and I don't want to lose that. when my family got here, this was considered the Carolina Territories. So Tennessee doesn't become a state until 1796. My family gets here in 1794. The reason why that's important is the first organized slave patrol was created in the Carolinas territories to prevent enslaved Africans from going west. Okay? So this ground is literally the place where those type of policing mechanisms begin. Police started slave patrols in that moment, right, to hold on and to guard exploitive labor, okay? Then they turn into militias to prevent enslaved Africans from going north and all the way to Canada, right? After that moment, then they reorganize again into police forces. If you look at our populations that are consistently being jailed and being policed, those populations are usually in struggling communities that lack the investment from the city. They're in places where the cycle of poverty is continually going over and over again. And so police, militias, slave patrols were all three used in a similar fashion to keep people in a place of subjugation where they consistently are being exploited through working, right? Often also, just to make it more material, in Nashville specifically, from 1977 to 2017, we invested over $8 billion in jailing and policing in Black and brown neighborhoods in Nashville.
Wow.
While at the same time, we spent less than $5 billion on housing, less than $1 billion on public safety, on public health, and less than 0.5 billion into libraries. So there's no wonder we have a housing issue, right? We live in a city that has overinvested in policing and jailing, right? And so when we talk about actually investing in affordable housing and making our communities more affordable, we have never seen what that will do. But we live in a reality right now where we know what overinvesting in policing and jailing is doing, right? All the way down to even at this point in time, we have consistently over the past 2 years expanded police surveillance, whether it's with license plate readers, where we put in highly populated areas, which is also policy language.
Code language for
and
Black
brown,
communities.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, we filling it in. But recently, the police department expanded surveillance by uploading what they call this software, what they call Fuses. Now, if you are a sci-fi fan and you've seen any sci-fi show, whether it's Minority Report, The Terminator, you know what this network does, right?
Yeah.
Right, you know what it does.
Sure.
And just the idea of that type of information where the software can link every camera to a real-time facial recognition soft place, right? Where literally CCTV is turned on. So what I'm saying is we have consistently invested into solving people's everyday problems with throwing police at them. Even John Lewis, right? John Lewis, the traditional civil rights movement, they have always asked for safe communities. In their mind, what they're talking about is better housing, better jobs, more readily available food. But what the system has consistently given us back is police. And so we need to talk about that so that we can actually land on a solution and put the pressure on those who continue to make that investment with our tax dollars.
This is so beautiful. This conversation is, to me, at the precipice of why the Museum of Presence has three goals: is to speak about art,
Yep.
is to speak about underrepresented community, and to speak about mindfulness. Mindfulness is really just a sort of a peculiar term for awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you grow up not really seeing it all. I tell you, this is a piece of art that sort of was, at the time, I was working in the advertising industry for like 20 years. Working, selling vodka and selling whiskey and selling computers and apps and search engines and things. And I saw a film by Ava DuVernay called 13th. And all of the suspicions that I had thought of and all the conspiracy theories I've heard my whole entire life was placed before me in a way that opened up my awareness to a reality and not just conspiracy theories. And it changed me so much that it changed the course of my career. I stopped working for any kind of brand. I started working for foundations. I got the opportunity to support the Obama Foundation. I got the opportunity to help all kinds of anybody that was trying to do social, they call it social impact, right? Anybody's trying to do anything to change the world. And that really is at the center of the things that I'm creating now still, is how do I create things that inspire people to wake up, to see their lives, to see themselves, and to maybe think. When I first moved to Nashville, I remember going around and I would write these notes and ask people what their relationship with God was. And I made, it was really popular at the time when I first got here, did all these, what I call these God notes. And there was a lot of question about what that project was about, but really, it was really born out of the heart that I remember being at church and seeing people's hands raised and lifting, they were singing their songs. But when I asked them about, like, how does this faith relate to how we change the world, how we affect our communities, unfortunately, the answers were slim. I got from one of my best friends. He said, well, I give money to a guy who goes to prisons and talks to him. That's beautiful, that's great, but that's it. You write a check. Because when I see the stories of our faith leaders, right? When I mean like they're there and they, when I mean our faith leaders, like from the way back, these are people that work, that use their platforms to help communities, to help people, to feed people. I see, but I'm missing that. I'm missing that. And so that whole project was about maybe turning this power, this sort of authority of God, the God's voice, back to the people.
And I have a question for you. And this is because I grew up in the church.
Okay, give it to me.
So you're not finna bring up God and we not have that conversation.
Well.
So when you talk, so where do you see God the most?
Where do I see God the most? Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I'm at a really interesting place to ask that because I see God most in the mirror. It was a beautiful day I was listening to. I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Come on.
I was listening to this Kanye West album. Sorry. Don't get mad at me. Y'all still listen to the music too.
There's some worse people out there.
There's some worse people. The church one. The He's alive. He's alive. And I was in the gym listening to this, and I started singing it to myself, or at least the God inside of me. My favorite poem. I've written it over 50 times now. Is a poem that says, "Perhaps the little piece of God inside of you is much bigger than you think."
Yes, sir.
And that's it, because there is God. We always know there's a little piece. We say that since you're a little kid. There's a little piece of God inside of you. But why we ignore that piece so much? Why can't we spend some more time with that piece? The last few years, I used to have a big important job working for a big important celebrity that I won't mention. But I remember I quit that job, walked out. I just walked out. I was like, I can't do this no more. My heart wouldn't take it. And I remember I went home and I said, I'm gonna write some meditation music. I didn't even know what meditation was. But I knew I needed to wash off the devil.
That's real. Got to.
So I went home. I had my like 3-month-old son with me. I just quit my job with this baby. And I started to make meditation music. It sent me on a journey to understand how to quiet myself, to sit down and listen to what's happening here.
I wanted to ask you that question because my religion is the reason why I'm so dedicated. I see this I see this as an exercise of my faith in humanity. Even when it comes to historical religious figures, usually those figures are amongst the people, right? And they're usually even serving the people in ways that are both loving. I had one mentor, Reverend David Tucker over at Beach Creek. One time he told me, he was like, when you talk to people, you have to remember that you're inviting them into the faith, no matter what it is, right? Whether it's the faith in people, the faith in the organization, because they have to have the belief that they can see themselves there. And so I wanted to ask you that because when I look at your art pieces, it's capturing moments where I feel people can see themselves. And so in seeing themselves, they see a piece of God, like you talked about before.
Yeah. That's the heart. Like, that's the heart. And my whole, if there was something, if I had a particular idea as an artist, a perspective, if there was an altruistic sort of agenda of mine, is for people to see the God in themselves.
And that's interesting, right? Because a couple different things. Of course, we're in the South, right? And I remember people, I can't remember who told me this, but the reason why we used to stay in church all day is because after the church service, we would organize, right? Who's struggling with what? How can we make sure that they're not? And sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't, but that is the tradition, right? And even when we talk about revolution, like the reason the Haitian Revolution popped off, and a lot of people leave this piece of the story out, is because they did an African spiritual ceremony where deity comes down.
Wow.
And the deity that came down was Ogun. And Ogun is the god of war. It is the fire, the all-consuming. And so that spirituality is what motivated those Africans to wage revolution in the peace, right? And even when we talk about Nat Turner, Gabriel Prosser, the African Methodism tradition, we know that when we are awakened spiritual and when we see ourselves, that piece of God in us, it can lead to our activity in changing and transforming society.
I love that. I love that. And you got me on a topic that I can talk about for too long. And that's tracing our traditional African sort of traditions and ideas and spiritual practices all the way to the Black church. We speak about Ogun is the Yoruba deity, right? And so, but we don't know about this.
Right.
We don't know that throughout time, these sort of deities were hidden in a process called syncretism underneath the patron saints. So our ancestors were worshiping Ogun, but it sounded like they said they were worshiping St. Patrick, but they were really worshiping Ogun.
Yes.
They say that they were honoring Mary Magdalene, but they were really honoring Oshun.
Yes.
And we wonder, like, why is the Black church so different?
Yes.
No, what is it? Why is Black people just, they just say, well, Black people's different. But actually, no. Actually, these are like these expressions that were hidden. And then as Catholicism goes away, we see, actually, so we lose these deities and we just have the shakes. Yeah. We got the jump up and down and run around and where did these things come from?
Yes.
Where did things come from?
Yeah.
They come from our old traditions.
Yeah.
And so I say that because there's this principle of Sankofa, which is probably an underpinning of everything that I'm making, is to look backward to go forward.
Yes, sir.
And to understand that, hey, these practices, I love Lauryn Hill, she says, what a paradox to have God trapped in a box. What's she mean by that? And I think that for us to to go back and to really open up this box, to see what's there, I think there's all kinds of expression. And I like to question who's the author of that? Who gets to ask that question? Yeah. And so a lot of my work is hopefully trying to touch these areas. Yeah.
And it is. And like you brought up Lauryn Hill, like, and I'm just gonna give up a trick real fast. One really easy way to break down, like, we all know that prisons are not good. It's the first thing Nas does on I Rule the World is open all the prisons.
Yes.
First thing he does, I'm opening all the prisons.
Yeah.
I'm letting all my people out. So there's this innate idea of spirituality that we know what's right. And we just have to work to see into each other.
Jamel, thank you so much for sitting with me. I have one last question for you before we go.
Okay, come on.
And so in last season of Museum of Presence, the quote that I took from you was a very interesting one. I think that you were at a community rally and someone had asked you about rest. You said that you have trouble resting because you feel Harriet's gun at your back.
Absolutely.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so first I want to say, we talk about Harriet's gun. Also, we don't think she ever used it, right? And so we talk about Harriet's gun at our back as an urgency. There's an urgency there. And so oftentimes there's this demobilizing thing that's happening oftentimes when we talk about rest. Like, your rest is radical. Like, it's almost like a lulling you to sleep, right? For me, I rest to get back active. Like, my rest is almost in a way that is like, I am saving up my energy to go further next time. Also, the reason why I struggle with rest is because I work with some really dedicated folks. And those dedicated folks, we gonna push each other, right? We gonna push each other, and we gonna go as hard as we can for the people, because we know that the people are in an urgent situation. People are struggling right now, right? So I feel Harriet's gun at my back to push my folks into a circumstance where we can be free. The last thing I was gonna say about Harriet's gun at my back is we rest in numbers, right? So that's why we talk about organization. A part of the organization is leadership development. So anybody listen to the sound of my voice right now, if you want to join an organization, 2 things you want to ask is, what is the politics, right? Because you want to know what that organization believes in. And what is the trajectory and the leadership that an everyday person can go through to understand the organization and lead the organization? That is how we rest. We rest with that transferring of knowledge. We rest in numbers, right? When we talk about Harriet, right, we talk about on the road to freedom. They not all sleeping at the same time. Some of them are watching, right? Even our religion says watch. Look at the troubled waters. You pay attention to what's going on, right? And so that's how I look at rest.
Thank you for that explanation. Thank you for that. It's just a very important thing to speak about. There is it's stressful work organizing. It's stressful work being active. It's stressful work paying attention. We're in an election season. We're all paying attention. If you didn't even want to pay attention, you're getting it. You're getting all of it. And this is that time. And I think that what happens is, and I was sharing this the last time I was with my brother, I remember there was a time I was so involved. I was getting into it. And I went so hard. I burnt out and fizzled out. And so
That makes sense.
now my work, there's an organization that my partner and I have started called True Voice, which is an app that is really offering community centered around wellness, around meditation, around mindfulness, and really focused around our community, around how do we meet the needs, your needs, how do we meet the needs of a Black and brown community? Because we're seeing that people they're burning out till they fizzle out. And then they're gone. And then their power is lost. And so I think that I wanted to speak with you about this because I wanted to underscore what I think is the importance of understanding our relationship to how we take care of ourselves as in the middle of the fight.
And it's real easy to burn out. You know what I'm saying? It's real easy to burn out, especially when you're by yourself.
Yes.
That's why we try to talk about membership-based organizations, right? Oftentimes we talk about power, right? Power is too much to hold for one individual. What Kanye say?
One man should have all that power.
No one man, right? And so what that means is through organization, we can hold it together. But the people have to believe and have the faith that we have the ability to hold the power. If I give you a concrete example, the proposed budget in Nashville is around about 400 pages. We go through it every year with probably about 6 to 7 people, right? We're doing it collectively together. And so I want to promote and challenge people to find an organization to join, because it is that organization and that reliance on that community that will prevent burnout on this work.
Jamel, thank you so much. What a pleasure to have Jamel come speak to us. If you want to follow Jamel, make sure you go to Southern Movement Committee. The website is oursmc.org. You also can follow them on any social media platform under Southern Movement Co. You can follow them at Black Nashville Assembly. And if you haven't been out to one of those meetings, please go. They're really empowering for the community to see how powerful we can be when we work together. They also have a really great podcast, voted best podcast in Nashville, Black Nashville Assembly podcast, where you're going to hear some young people speak about new ideas for Nashville and the world. I have a lot of people to thank for this episode. First off, my good friend Clarence Edwards, who runs Sea Gallery, Daniel Jones from Oz, where actually, if you're watching this podcast, you'll see that the video cut out sort of midway through, and Daniel Jones steps in like a hero and sets up his camera, and the second half of the video is actually shot from his iPhone. It really just shows how much it takes a village to pull off something like this. And to Oz Arts, who puts on arguably the best theatrical performances on the avant-garde experimental spectrum that you can find in Nashville. If you haven't been to a show at Oz Arts, you're really missing out on the centerpiece for amazing performing arts. And they were so gracious to let us film this conversation in their space. Last but certainly not least, this podcast was made possible from a grant by Metro Arts Nashville, from a grant by TriStar Arts. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do go to museumofpresence.com and like, share, send it to your mom. I don't know, pass it around to somebody. Put in a text message, even better, so that the people can hear it. And that really helps us to keep doing this work. Well, until next time.
We talk about Harriet's gun. Also, we don't think she ever used it.
Peace.